We have a saying, flying fighters: lose sight, lose the fight. If you ever lose sight of your competition, your threats to mission success, and it's not those obvious external threats like the economy or perhaps the plastics industry or maybe even the competitors that you have in your individual companies, but it's often those internal threats like complacency, indifference, and apathy, those pesky communication issues, or trying to replace and find new talent within your organizations. If you ever lose sight of those threats to mission success, you will always, always lose the fight. Once we've assembled our planning team, the next thing we do is we determine the mission objective. What's our goal? Now this sounds pretty simple, right? But it's actually one of the hardest parts of the whole planning process. And the reason why is that a mission objective must be clear, talking crystal clear. It must be measurable. It must have specific dates and metrics attached to it. It must be achievable, that is believable to the teams you're giving it to. Anybody ever get something that they're like, yeah, right, we're gonna handle that? Where does that go? Circular file, okay? And it must support the future picture of where your organization is headed. So how does that apply to the individuals, the leaders sitting in this room, and the companies that you run each and every day? Well, as an industry, everybody here wants to gain new customers and expand the PM market. That's a great vision, but how are we going to do that within our specific organizations? Well, I had a chance to talk with Rodney Brennan last night, and he is the Vice President of Metco Industries, Inc. out of St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. And I said, Rodney, what's an objective for your team? And he said, one of the things that we want to achieve throughout this year, at the end of our fiscal year, is we want to have increased sales 25% by September 30th, 2011. Now, it's clear, that's measurable, it's achievable to his organization, and it definitely supports that future picture of gaining new clients. But will that drive a specific action from his sales team? So we broke that down a little bit further. And what we determined was that they want to sell 150,000 electronic power steering units to GM by July 29th, 2011. Is that clear? I think I saw some vertical head nods. Is it measurable? Absolutely. Is it achievable? It is with his organization, and if you can look at it, it draws a straight line to increasing the overall sales number and gaining those new customers and expanding their market. It's a good mission objective. The point that I'm getting at is when you set these out for yourselves, more importantly, when you set these out for your teams within your individual organizations, make sure that they are clear and measurable and that your teams can take specific action against them.
What is task saturation? It's the perception or reality of not having enough time, tools, or resources to counter that. And we know that as task saturation increases, errors increase. And we also know that as task saturation increases, performance decreases. We call task saturation the silent killer because it's insidious. It sneaks up on you. In fact, I almost lost a very good friend to task saturation. You see, my buddy was flying F-16s, low level, over the mountains of Nevada in an exercise we call red flag. 2 F-16s lying abreast, 500 feet off the ground, about 450 miles an hour. And he was doing a great job of flying perfect formation. He was doing a great job of sounding really cool on the radio because that's important. Because you could be on fire and screaming like a little girl in the cockpit, but when you key that mic, you gotta sound cool like, I'm on fire. Because it's important to sound cool all the way to impact, right? So, he's doing a great job talking on the radio, flying formation. Well, he gets a contact on his radar. So he stops looking outside and comes inside to look at his radar and try to determine if that contact is friend or foe, good or bad. 1,001, 1,002, wham! He takes off about 2 feet of a mountain peak that's out in front of him. Now luckily, he's able to stabilize the aircraft and eject. But I guarantee you, if I could have jumped into Skip's cockpit, and oh by the way, his call sign wasn't Skip before the accident, but if I could have jumped into Skip's cockpit right before he hit that mountain and said, hey Skip, how you doing, man? You okay? He would have given me 2 thumbs up and said, Hacksaw, I got it, I'm the man. Task saturation is insidious, and it can be very, very dangerous. Now, I believe that people handle task saturation in one of two ways. 20% of us shut down. They say, you've got it, I'm out of here, I'm going to take a long lunch, see you later. The rest of us channelize. And we call that channelized attention. It's like pulling out a big soda straw, and that's the only thing you focus on to the detriment of everything else. And in my buddy Skip's example, he was focused on the radar, and it almost cost him his life. Now, what about your world? From talking to a couple of people, how can you get task saturated and channelize something in your world? Well, say you're a VP of your organization, and your die setter just quit, and you don't have a replacement from him. Your copper prices keep increasing. Your CEO just came in and said, hey, I want those third quarter projections today. And oh, by the way, the spouse just called and said, you need to pick up the kids from soccer practice. Sound familiar to anyone?